Database theory and concepts. What is meant by the term data in the context of data management? Data refers to numeric, textual, visual, or audio information that is processed and stored by a system. What is a database system architecture? It is a model that describes the essential components of a database system and explains how those components interact with each other. What is the theoretical basis for relational data structures? The theoretical basis for relational data structures is set theory. What is a relational database? It is a database that stores data in tables, which are known as relations and are composed of rows and columns. What is a NoSQL database? A NoSQL database is a system for storing and retrieving data that is modeled in ways other than the tabular relations used in relational databases. It is often optimized for big data. What are the primary roles that people play when interacting with a database? The primary roles are the database administrator, DBA, the database designer, and the database user or programmer. What is a database administrator, or DBA, responsible for? A database administrator is responsible for securing the database, managing user access, and ensuring the system is available and running correctly. What is a database designer responsible for? A database designer is responsible for determining the format of each data element and designing the overall database structure, including tables, columns, and relationships. What is a database transaction? A transaction is a group of queries that must be completed or rejected as a single, indivisible unit to ensure data remains consistent. What is the purpose of a transaction log? The purpose of a transaction log is to keep a complete record of all inserts, updates, and deletes that have been processed by the database. This is crucial for recovery after a system failure. What is a database schema? A schema is the formal structure of a database, which includes its tables, columns, data types, and keys as specified in SQL. What is relational algebra? Relational algebra is the set of operations that form the theoretical foundation of the SQL language. What does the acronym CRUD stand for? CRUD stands for the four most common database operations: create, read, update, and delete. What is an application programming interface, or API? An API is a library of procedures or classes that connects a host programming language to a database, simplifying communication. What are the common synonyms for a table? Common synonyms for a table are relation and file. What are the common synonyms for a row? Common synonyms for a row are record and tuple. What are the common synonyms for a column? Common synonyms for a column are field and attribute. What are the common synonyms for a data dictionary? Common synonyms for a data dictionary are catalog and repository. What is a spatial data type used for? A spatial data type is used to store geometric information, such as lines, polygons, or map coordinates. What is a document data type used for? A document data type is used to store textual data in a structured format, such as XML or JSON. Database design and entity relationship modeling. What happens during the analysis phase of database design? The analysis phase focuses on capturing requirements and creating a high-level conceptual model, such as an entity relationship diagram. What happens during the logical phase of database design? The logical phase involves converting the conceptual model into tables, keys, and columns for a specific type of database, like a relational database. What happens during the physical phase of database design? The physical phase is where performance tuning features like indexes and file structures are specified. In an ER model, what is an attribute? An attribute is a descriptive characteristic or property of an entity. What is a strong entity? A strong entity is one that can exist on its own and has a primary key to uniquely identify its instances. What is a weak entity? A weak entity is one that depends on a strong entity for its existence and cannot be uniquely identified by its own attributes alone. What is an identifying relationship? An identifying relationship is the specific link between a strong entity and a weak entity. What does cardinality define in a relationship? Cardinality defines the maximum number of instances of one entity that can participate in a relationship. What does modality define in a relationship? Modality defines the minimum number of instances of one entity that must participate in a relationship. In an ER diagram, what does a short bar across the relationship line indicate? A short bar indicates mandatory participation, which means a modality of one. In an ER diagram, what does a circle on the relationship line indicate? A circle indicates optional participation, which means a modality of 0. In an ER diagram, what does a crow's foot symbol indicate? A crow's foot indicates the many side of a relationship, representing a cardinality of many. How is a one-to-one relationship represented in an ER diagram? It is represented by a short bar on both ends of the relationship line. What is a unary relationship? A unary relationship, also known as a recursive relationship, is a relationship that an entity has with itself. For example, an employee supervising another employee. What is a binary relationship? A binary relationship is a link between two distinct entities and is the most common type of relationship. What is a ternary relationship? A ternary relationship is a relationship that involves three distinct entities, such as a doctor prescribing a medication to a patient. What is an is-a relationship? An is-a relationship is the link between a supertype and its subtype entities, such as a car, is-a vehicle. What is a has-a relationship? A has-a relationship is a link between two distinct entities where one contains the other, such as a customer, has-a, an order. What is a supertype? A supertype is a generic entity that has a relationship with one or more specialized subgroups, known as subtypes. What is a subtype? A subtype is a specialized subgroup of an entity that has unique attributes not found in the supertype. In entity modeling, what is a partition? A partition is a group of subtype entities that are mutually exclusive, meaning an instance of the supertype can only belong to one of the subtypes in that group. What is a junction table? A junction table is used to resolve a many-to-many relationship by containing foreign keys that point to the two tables it links. What is an entity relationship diagram, or ERD? An ERD is a graphical chart that shows the entities, attributes, and relationships in a database model. What is a view in a database? A view is a virtual table based on the result set of an SQL statement. It contains rows and columns, just like a real table, but does not store the data itself. What is a materialized view? A materialized view is a special type of view where the data is physically stored and must be refreshed periodically. This is done to improve performance for complex queries. What does the with check option clause do for a view? The with check option clause prevents inserts or updates to the view that would create rows that are not visible through the views where clause. Keys. What is a primary key? A primary key is a field or group of fields that uniquely identifies a specific record in a table. What is a foreign key? A foreign key is a key used to link two tables together. It is a field in one table that refers to the primary key in another table. What is a candidate key? A candidate key is any column or set of columns that is unique and minimal and could therefore be chosen to be the primary key. What is the role of a composite primary key? Its role is to uniquely identify a row in a table by using a combination of two or more columns. What is a surrogate key? A surrogate key, also known as an artificial key, is a system-generated unique key that has no business meaning. It is created when no suitable natural key is available. What is unique identifier analysis? It is the strategy of examining data to find columns that contain unique values and could therefore be used as primary keys. What is entity integrity? The rule that ensures every table has a primary key and that the primary key value is not null. What is referential integrity? A rule ensuring that a foreign key value must always match an existing primary key value, preventing orphan records. Normalization. What is normalization? Normalization is the process of organizing columns and tables to minimize data redundancy and improve the overall integrity of the data. What is data redundancy? Data redundancy is the unnecessary and unintentional duplication of data within a database. What is a functional dependency? A functional dependency is a relationship where the value of one attribute, called the determinant, determines the value of another attribute. What is the first normal form, or 1NF? The first normal form ensures that a table has no repeating groups and that every cell holds a single atomic value. What is the second normal form, or 2NF? The second normal form requires a table to be in 1NF and resolves partial dependencies by making sure all non-key columns depend on the entire composite primary key. What is the third normal form, or 3NF? The third normal form requires a table to be in 2NF and resolves transitive dependencies by making sure no non-key column depends on another non-key column. What is a partial dependency? A partial dependency occurs when a non-key attribute depends on only a part of a composite primary key. This violates the second normal form. What is a transitive dependency? A transitive dependency is an indirect dependency where a non-key attribute depends on another non-key attribute. This violates the third normal form. What is denormalization? Denormalization is the process of intentionally adding redundancy to a database, usually by merging tables, in order to improve query performance. SQL commands, clauses, and functions. In SQL, what is an expression? An expression is a combination of values, operators, and functions that evaluates to a single value. A simple example is the condition city equals Beijing. In SQL, what is a keyword? A keyword is a reserved word that has a special meaning for the language processor, such as select, from, or where. In SQL, what is an identifier? An identifier is a name assigned to a database object like a table or column, such as customer orders. In SQL, what is a literal? A literal is an explicit value, such as the number 134 or the text, welcome. How do you delete a column from a table? You use the alter table command, followed by the drop column clause. How do you delete an entire table? You use the drop table command, which removes the table and all of its data. What is the standard command to add a new row to a table? The standard command is insert into followed by the table name, and then the values clause. When inserting a record into a table with an auto-incrementing primary key, what should you do? You should omit the primary key column from the insert statement, which allows the database to automatically assign the next value. What is the standard command to remove rows from a table? The command is delete from, which is usually paired with a where clause to specify which rows to remove. What is the purpose of the as keyword? The as keyword is used to create a temporary name or an alias for a table or column. What does the AND operator do? The AND operator is a logical operator used to combine two conditions in a query, where both conditions must be true for a row to be included. What is the purpose of the group by clause? The group by clause groups rows that share a common property so that an aggregate function can be applied to each group. What is the difference between the where and having clauses? The where clause filters rows before any aggregation occurs, while the having clause filters groups after aggregation has been performed. What does the modulo operator, the %, do? The modulo operator is an arithmetic operator that returns the remainder of a division operation. What does the sum function do? The sum function is an aggregate function that calculates the total sum of a set of numeric values. What does the count function do? The count function is an aggregate function that returns the total number of rows in a given set. What does the AVG function do? The AVG function is an aggregate function that calculates the average of a set of numeric values. What does the trim function do? The trim function is a text function that removes leading and trailing white space from a string. What does the CURDATE function do? The CURDATE function is a date function that returns the current system date in the format YYYYMMDD. In SQL, what does the unary minus operator do? The unary minus operator inverts the sign of a numeric value, changing a positive number to negative and vice versa. What is the like keyword used for? The like keyword is used in a where clause to find string values that match a specified pattern. In a like clause, what does the %sign wildcard do? The %sign wildcard represents 0 or more characters in a pattern match. In a like clause, what does the underscore wildcard do? The underscore wildcard represents exactly one character in a pattern match. Which data type is ideal for storing currency to ensure accuracy? The decimal data type is ideal for currency because it is a fixed point number and is not susceptible to small rounding errors. Why is the float data type not ideal for storing currency? The float data type is a floating point number and can have small rounding errors, which is not acceptable for financial calculations. SQL constraints. What is a default constraint? A default constraint provides a default value for a column when no value is specified during an insert operation. What is a check constraint? A check constraint limits the value range that can be placed in a column by evaluating whether an expression is true. What does a unique constraint do? A unique constraint ensures that all values in a column or a group of columns are unique, meaning no two rows can have the same value in that column. What does the cascade referential constraint do? The cascade constraint automatically propagates any modifications, like updates or deletes, from a primary key to all of its corresponding foreign keys. What does the restrict referential constraint do? The restrict constraint prevents the deletion or update of a row if that row's primary key is referenced by foreign keys in any other tables. What does the set null referential constraint do? The set null constraint will set all corresponding foreign key values to null whenever the referenced primary key row is deleted. SQL joins. What is the main requirement for comparing two columns in a join? The main requirement is that the two columns must have data types that can be compared with each other. What is an equijoin? An equijoin is the most common type of join, which links tables based on an equality condition using the equals sign. What is a non-equijoin? A non-equijoin is a join that links tables based on an inequality condition, such as not equal, less than, or greater than. How does an inner join work? An inner join returns only the rows where the join condition is met in both of the tables being joined. How does a left join work? A left join returns all rows from the left table, along with any matched rows from the right table. If there is no match, the columns from the right table will be null. How does a right join work? A right join returns all rows from the right table, along with any matched rows from the left table. If there is no match, the columns from the left table will be null. How does a full outer join work? A full outer join returns all rows when there is a match in either the left or the right table, effectively combining the results of both a left join and a right join. What is a cross join? A cross join returns the Cartesian product of both tables, which means every row from the first table is combined with every row from the second table. Indexing and query optimization. What is the primary purpose of a database index? The primary purpose of an index is to speed up the retrieval of rows from a database table. In terms of physical data organization, what is a table structure? A table structure is the scheme used for organizing rows and blocks on storage media, such as a heap table or a sorted table. What is a heap table? A heap table is a table structure where no specific order is imposed on the rows. They are often fast for insert operations. What is a sorted table? A sorted table is a table structure where the physical row order is determined by a specific column, known as the sort column. What is a hash table? A hash table is a table structure where rows are assigned to specific storage areas, called buckets, based on a hash function applied to the hash key. What are table clusters? Table clusters, also called multi-tables, are a structure where rows from two or more related tables are interleaved in the same physical storage area to improve join performance. What is a cluster key? A cluster key is a column that is shared by all tables in a table cluster and is used to interleave the data. What is a clustering index? A clustering index is a special type of index that determines the physical order of data in a table. Because of this, a table can only have one clustering index. What is a non-clustering index? A non-clustering index, also known as a secondary index, has a structure that is separate from the data rows and whose order does not match the physical data order. A table can have many of these. What is a dense index? A dense index is a type of index that contains an entry for every single row in the database table. What is a sparse index? A sparse index is a type of index that only contains entries for some data blocks, which saves space but may be less efficient for some lookups. What is a single-level index file? A single-level index is a file that contains the column values from an indexed column, as well as pointers that lead to the corresponding rows containing those values. What is a B-tree? A B-tree is the most common data structure that is used to implement database indexes. What is an index scan? An index scan is the process of using an index data structure to locate the specific rows that are needed for a query. What is a table scan? A table scan is the process of reading every single row in a table to find the desired data. This is done when no suitable index is available, or when the query is expected to return most of the table's rows. When will a database perform a table scan instead of an index scan? The database will choose a table scan if a query is expected to return a large percentage of rows, known as a high filter factor, because it is more efficient than using an index in that case. When will a database choose to use an index? The database will use an index when a query is expected to return a small percentage of rows, known as a low filter factor, because it is much faster to look up the few specific rows needed.